So, without any further ado, before we do officially transition, into the panel discussion, just want to give some background on, the Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition and, how we've basically gotten to where we are today. And also some background on what a tenant organization even is for people who might not know that. And so basically, yeah, we have this Howard County Rent Stabilization Coalition since last year. Many different groups, including Our Revolution, Baltimore Party for Socialism and Liberation, all a part of it. And, again, we were trying to get rent stabilization passed. We did get a bill introduced, but the bill failed in January. And so we've since transitioned to other pro-tenant efforts. One of them being creating these things called tenant organizations, or as they, called it at Columbia Point, a tenant union. But basically something that gives tenants extra legal protections, rights, responsibilities, et cetera, that you don't have as just an individual tenant. That's why we call it a tenant union, because it's like a workplace union, but for, renters where they live, to give them that collective leverage to, negotiate against the landlords. And so we also got, we try to get several, but we got one tenant in particular elected to the local Oakland Mills Village Board. That's Paulette, one of our panelists, who will introduce herself shortly. And so that's why we've been working in Oakland Mills now, because that's where Paulette lives. She ran to represent tenants. She got elected, so that's what we've been doing. And so we are trying to build a tenant organization where she lives in Autumn Crest. Before, I won't go into detail because we'll save it for the panel, but before things started popping off at Columbia Point, I'll say, and we quickly, decided to shift efforts more at Columbia Point, because as the panel described, things are really bad there. And so we're fairly deep into that process now of trying to become an official tenant union, form as an official tenant union at Columbia Point. Brandon, Kevin, Yoni, and many others have been, week by week gathering petition signatures. And so we're nearly at the threshold needed to, formalize. Hopefully in the next month or two, we can be there. So also Paulette, when we got her elected, we created a tenant committee under the Oakland Mills Village Board. To my knowledge, this is the first time a tenant committee's ever been formed in any of the village boards. And so that tenant committee's kind of been one of our main bodies that we've been to organize the tenants in Oakland Mills, as we really just focus on Columbia Point, trying to form that first tenant union there. And so we do have weekly calls every Thursday night at 7 p.m. if people are interested in getting involved. Especially you, Harry, you said you're interested, tenant work. But yeah, so or anybody, but yeah, so just some additional background on tenant organizations in general. And because every jurisdiction, usually you have to pass a law allowing tenants to create these tenant organizations. And so every jurisdiction, the way that they do tenant organizations is a little bit different. And so I've got a picture of the Howard County statute on tenant organizations and how they work here, and the powers that come with it. So just real quick, how they describe it in the county law. And I should add that this was a county law that was only passed in 2018. And so it's a relatively new concept, tenants having the ability to form these tenant organizations, but to our knowledge, no tenants in the county ever actually have taken advantage of this to form a tenant organization. So all that is to say that aside from this law, there is no precedent of these being created in Howard County. And so what we're trying to do at Columbia Point is historic. We would be the first ones in the county, and because we are the first ones in the county, a lot of the process is not that fleshed out and not that defined. And so, we're kind of working in the dark here to some degree, but it's also makes it fun. So there's that. But yeah, so what the statute says, for purposes of this section, a tenant organization is one that is formed by the tenants of the development, meets regularly, operates democratically, is representative of all residents in development, and is completely independent of owners, management, and representation. So yeah, by law, it's independent from ownership. And a tenant organization represents an entire rental complex. So in their instance, Columbia Point, it's not just their one building at Columbia Point, it's all the buildings at Columbia Point. Some of the rights that come with it is they can form, join, meet, or assist one another as part of the tenant organization. Otherwise, meet and confer with landlords and representatives that are choosing, negotiate, engage in other cooperative activities for mutual aid and protection, refrain from any activity listed in this section. By law, the landlord has to meet with the tenant organization or organization if the tenant union requests that meeting. By law, the tenant unions are allowed to use the meeting spaces in the complex where they form that tenant union, and they get to use it for free at least once a month. And then I guess the rest of the the rest of the statute there is that the tenants can hand out literature, or the tenant union can hand out literature that management and landlords legally are not allowed to remove, whereas right now they can remove it because it's their private property technically. And potentially the biggest advantage that comes with forming a tenant organization is that it allows you to file actual legal complaints on behalf of tenant union, either for all the tenants, class action lawsuit, or just individual tenants. And so again, these are all at least the formal powers that come with forming a tenant organization, though this has not been done in Howard County. Next slide, please. And so that sort of wrap the presentation up, again, this hasn't been done in Howard County. We're hoping to be the first ones, but there are other ones in Maryland and across the country. It's definitely not a new concept, but it's not as fleshed out as like regular just workplace unions that have the NLRB and all that. But there is a rather high profile tenant association called the Enclave Tenant Association in Montgomery County. And then in the last week or so, what's linked there at the bottom is just like there's the AFL-CIO, coalition of all these tenants, coalition of all these unions at the national level. Now it's seemingly trying to form something similar for tenant unions, a national tenant union association with 5 major tenant unions across the country just formed. I'm guessing they're going to be hoping to expand, maybe one day even Columbia Point tenant union becomes a part of that. But all that to say that it's not a new concept, but it is a concept that seems to be gaining a lot more steam now than it did in the past. And so with all that being said, I'm super excited to see us, now doing that or trying to do that in Columbia and in Oakland Mills. And so without any further ado, I do want to, transition us to our panel now on tenant organizations. And so thank you to all of our panelists for being here. Thank you for our panelists who are at home with us as well. And so I guess to start us off with, I just want to go, panelist by panelist, just sort of introduce yourself and, what your role in things has hello. Just getting started. Yes. But yeah, so don't worry, we're just getting started with the panel discussion on tenant organization, so come at the right time. But yeah, the panelists are about to introduce themselves. So if you want to say who you are and what your role has been and what your connection to this topic is, essentially.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon. I have been at Columbia Point for 2 years, and it has been a downward spiral ever since. They have been taken over by new management, and they have let it go from bad to worse, and it just continues to escalate. So I kind of just put up flyers for people to gather and come together and maybe voice their concerns and see if I was the only one who was having these issues. And come to find out, I was far from it. So I had about 50 people show up to that meeting. it was kind of last minute, bringing everybody together, but everybody showed up. Jake happened to show up. Paulette was there as well. And so, they were nice enough to allow us a second meeting in the other barn at the Oakland Mills Village Center. And it allowed all of the tenants 3 minutes to voice their concerns and their complaints with the new management. And some of them were very, very graphic and very bad. I'll just say that. Of which it had the village board create the committee in which Jake was referring, and of which all of them decided, that was a good thing. All of them raised their hand unanimously on that decision. So it's definitely needed. We have 325 units at our facility. And just in the main building alone is 174 units, and the main building is the worst of it. The trash piles up, the compactor's broken, dog feces everywhere. It's a mess. It's really bad, so much that fines were issued from the county, from fire marshals, from many departments. So that's where I've come, and that's where we are now. So right now we have six people on the organization, and Kevin here is one of them.
Yep.
I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Kevin.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. My name's Kevin Judy. I'm a member of the Baltimore Party for Socialism and Liberation. I am currently the facilitator of the Rent Stabilization Coalition meetings. And as Brendan just mentioned, I am involved with the tenant union at Columbia Point. I've been working with the Rent Stabilization Coalition for a while now. We got involved when we were doing testifying at the county council, trying to get that rent stabilization bill amended to be better. And then, of course, as Jake mentioned earlier, didn't end up getting passed. It fell through. And we all coordinated on reorienting our strategy and choosing to try and build that tenant power up. Starting in Oakland Mills, we saw that Paulette was willing to volunteer to get on the village board, and we thought we can work in Paulette's community, try to build up a tenant organization there. And me and Yoni, who's in the audience, were working together with Jake and Tim Wright, and we were all trying to find the tenants who would be able to get it jump started at Autumn Crest. We had a little bit of success, but not as much as we might have been looking for. So we were continuing to do that work. And then, of course, I live down the road at Columbia Point, where I see people are starting to complain about stuff, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something there. But I was gonna sort of take my time with it because we're working in Autumn Crest still. And then I see this flyer for a tenant meeting, and I'm like, okay, it's that bad at this point. So yeah, I ended up letting the coalition know, hey, we got it. We should all show up to this and show that we're supporting this this tenant collective action. And we went to that first meeting, and from there we've been working together trying to get the union recognized by law. And it's been going really, really well, especially in the past month or so. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work on that.
Thank you, Brandon and Kevin. And now if we want to go to our Zoom panelist, Paulette.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Paulette Pettipoy Thomas. As everybody's already said, I I ran for the village board. I ran on trying to that was one of the first things that I said, is that we wanted to form a tenants committee or a tenants association for the village board. So they were well aware of my intentions, that I was running it as an advocate for tenants and also for people of color or any other person outside of the people that were on the village board, which is mostly homeowners of not color. So that was what I ran on, and I did win. And like they talked about, we were trying to do our efforts in the place where I lived, which is Autumn Crest. We don't have a lot of issues in Autumn Crest. So it may have been a little bit harder at Autumn Crest to get people involved. And then when Kevin told us about Columbia Point, we went out to the meeting that Brandon put the flyers out for. And I did let them know that we had a meeting, we just happened to have our regular village board meeting the next day and that they can come to that meeting. And they came to the meeting, the board was shocked, and the board kind of explained what the powers that they have and what they can do and what they couldn't do. And from then on, like Brenda said, we were able to form the tenants association, or what is it, the tenants committee or committee or association?
Tenant committee, yeah.
Okay, the tenant committee on the Oakland Mills Village Board, and like Jake said, I think it is the only one. I haven't heard of any other ones, so that's very good. And now we're trying to get them to approve our charter. And then from there, we're gonna try to also help people go and file for their escrow. And we're just gonna try to be a liaison with all of the tenants in Oakland Mills and help them in any way that we can.
Yeah. And yes, and thank you, Paulette, for not only being on the panel tonight, but also being an elected leader for tenants and representing them when it's a community with a high percentage of tenants, and yet I don't think any of the village board members were tenants. And so it's good that they now have that representation. I'm sure maybe things are happening a little quicker than maybe we all, including yourself, expected, but you've been doing a great job. And so thank you for that. And so I guess, one question that I want to ask the panelists, especially, Kevin and Brandon is, I think Brandon, you already touched on it a little bit, but if you could both, speak on, and if, any of the audience members at Columbia Point want to chime in too, feel free to raise your hand. But, if you could speak on, that's a big step to form a tenant union. It's a lot of work, as you both are learning. It's no small undertaking. It's very timely too. And so I'm guessing, to get to that point, you were pretty desperate and, things were pretty bad. So could you speak on, a little bit about, what was so bad about the living conditions at Columbia Point that, was making you feel that way for a long time? And also what was the final straw that made, you guys really start to call people to action?
Sure. So I would say what really kind of started it would be maintenance requests. They would be put in and they would be closed without any resolution. They would be either closed or left open for weeks without any communication. They would claim they came and they couldn't get access to your apartment, so they closed it. Yet it clearly states they need to contact us beforehand. Anyway, what really broke the straw was the fact that they put up these notices on all of the buildings saying that asbestos was in the building and that it was being contractors were working on the building so that it was possible contamination, right? So they put up these notices. About a week and a half later, I requested and obtained a sit down with both the property manager and the assistant property manager. And I told them that I thought it was actually inhumane of them to post these notices without giving us any kind of information for almost 2 weeks. And they weren't too happy about that, yet I did not receive the information for an additional 2 weeks. Yet nobody else received this information. I had to receive it personally because I kept interrogating them. Well, when I received it, I put up those notices because I said, I know I'm the only one who received this. So I put up the notices saying, hey, everybody come together, let's talk. And I also want to distribute this information to you because I know you don't have it, because they said they sent it to you. I don't have it, so I'm sure you don't either. So I needed to make sure everybody had that information. So going from there, people are having problems with their AC. Mine personally has not worked since the end of last year. They knew this, and left it broken, and more than half of the building, the ACs have been broken all year. And in the main building, it gets up to the 9th floor, so nine stories high, quite hot there. I'm on the 7th floor. So they currently were giving out like portable ACs, but they're only giving one out per unit when units have 3 rooms, a kitchen, a living room, multiple rooms for one little AC, which does hardly equal for one room. Me personally, my showers have not worked. One of them has worked slightly for about 6 months. The other one has not worked since I've been there. They do nothing. They literally do nothing there. They talk. They don't do anything unless they are made to. Find, unless it comes out of their pocket. I spoke with the regional manager, like I said, and just found out she has quit after 2 months because she cannot get support to do what she needs to do there from the higher ups. So I believe that they have to know what's going on by this point, by people making complaints, by people making claims. I created this claims flyer here and stuck this around the grounds, and it gives people information on how they can contact Consumer Protection, inspections and licensing, health department, and I believe there's 2 other new departments that we just found out about. But I was getting people to make these claims so that we can have some sort of paperwork, some sort of history that we've made these efforts, that they are aware that these are problems. And so they're obviously not doing anything about it. They're just paying off the fines. They're doing the bare minimum to get by, and we're paying the price. We're paying the price. I'll just say that much. And so it's been a big learning curve because, like he said, there's no clear-cut way to gain legitimacy as an organization, as a union. So we've had to kind of come together as a group. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And bounce ideas off each other and create forums like this one here, where we went around and are collecting signatures from the tenants of Columbia Point to create a organization there. In order to do that, we need 30% of all occupied units in agreement of the union there. So 325 units, that would be about 100 units. So we recently found out from the ex-regional manager, that position is still open currently, but we found out from her that it's 78%. I don't know how true, but it sounds like a real number to me. So if that's the case, then we need just above 70. And I think this past weekend, we just hit over 70 signatures. So we can now, make our move and announce to management that we need to speak with them, and we can have that sit down and let them know what's going on and let them know what needs to change.
Anything that?
And the question was, what pushed me over the edge, basically?
Yeah, like what were the conditions? What was so bad about that?
Yeah, well, in my unit, mainly like maintenance, that was the big issue. When they would show up and say, oh, we'll fix this, and then they'd be like, oh, I gotta go get something, and then they'd leave, and then it would be like 3 weeks before they come back. It was I never really understood with that whole idea. I don't know why they fix all in one go, but that was something I was dealing with in my unit. But in terms of what pushed me over the edge, I mean, just understanding what I do about like the rental complexes and what goes on behind closed doors and what people have to deal with. I was not surprised when my sister called me before Brandon posted up the flyer. She was like, well, she's telling me like, Kevin, like please help me like figure out like how to go talk to people door knock, because I want to like start forming something, because they're not fixing like the AC, they're not fixing anything. So I was ready to do that. And then that's soon after, Brandon put the flyer up. So I could tell like this is a issue that is affecting like the masses of tenants at Columbia Point. And, coming at this from a socialist perspective, I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, well, people are starting to, come together in a collective force to try and address the issues they're facing. And what I wanted to do was just, go in there with any of the expertise that I have and try to like help this get like
Traction.
started and get traction, get the signatures it needed, and just keep it alive. Because I mean, the stuff you go through there, I mean, infestations of mice, of insects, when the
Spiders,
you know
snakes.
when the trash was piled up, people couldn't even go outside because like they couldn't go outside without like smelling like how horrible it was. That was ridiculous. And of course the AC being broken. I mean, there was that huge heat wave, I think like a month and a half back, and I mean, it was so hot. It sounded like somebody had like we had thought that somebody had like experienced like a serious health emergency from that, potentially like passed away. Um, Luckily, we found out that that person, had not passed away, but like the fact we believed it or like thought it might be credible goes to show, we were in a bad way, and just wanting to address that, wanting to help the union movement. Um, that's what pushed me over the edge.
Thank you, Kevin. And yes,
Brandon.
Brett.
There's a lot of things within this complex. I said, it sounds like mine, but I know you don't live in that building, but I know all of them.
And it's Columbia Point,
It's in Oakland Mills.
Oakland Mills, Columbia Point community.
Oakland.
Okay.
They are. complete, not-
You bet.
they evil. I mean, evil. People, the word evil. I mean,
Describes her lightly.
she got it. She got it.
Mhm.
She got it. Here's a good example. You walk in, good morning.
Mhm.
Yeah, what is it? I'm busy. Okay, what is it? What do you need?
Mhm.
Terrible.
Nothing gets fixed. The air conditions, everybody was going crazy, complaining about the air.
Mhm.
The maintenance guy, here's his routine. He'd come in, slamming everybody's stuff on the floor,
Mhm.
all around, closing the blinds and the curtains, and removing stuff that he thinks maybe, about vents. And I said, what is your problem? I said, I'm on the 7th floor. That little bit of light that's coming through is not the problem. I said, the air condition hasn't worked for 7 years. You know it. They're engineers. They own engineer. Of course, I think he got fired for saying. They sent him out one Sunday morning. And he looked, he said, this thing is broken. He said, you can fix and repair. He said, but she needs a new unit. If you change what is set off, you don't get any air. You don't get any heat, depending on the season. It only works on one dial. It only works on one.
Are you
So-
Belinda?
Yes.
You're Belinda.
And they brought in this automatic air because we got a new person, the old person. I had wrote so many people, the old person either walked out or got fired. Okay, not the property man, but the person that was over
Regional.
there. And a new guy came in and he said, this is just not human. I have letters from my doctor, and I'm asthmatic, I gotta have air, I can't,
Right.
I mean, I couldn't get any sleep because it was almost 100 degrees. I can't cook.
Mm-mm.
So I have to eat out. Cause if you even turn on the microwave, so it was, really bad in there. And I said to him, why don't you stop emailing me and show up?
Mm,
You won't even be here 2 minutes.
Mhm.
right.
It won't waste any of your time, but you won't be in here 2 minutes. Oh, he didn't want to come because he knew I was telling the truth.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I said,
There's nothing you could do.
I can talk all day, they can talk all day. And I said, let me guess what they told you. That I was crazy, I was paranoid.
Mm,
I makes up all of this stuff. I said, there's one way to prove who's telling the truth. Why don't you get in your fancy car,
Mm.
drive over here? You have my permission, because they come in here all the time anyway.
mm,
They think I don't know it, but I put up little cameras and I said, I got them on camera. Okay, drinking up my water,
wow.
using up my paper towels, and I have to spend more money to live because I have to eat out. I said, I stay out half of the night because I can't come in here and breathe. I said, one night I went to the ER because I found out
Mm,
how cold it is in there.
mm,
So I just sat there with the other people,
Mhm.
pretending like I was waiting to be waited on.
Potentially getting sick.
right.
Mhm.
I just sat there because, they have a room full of people. They're not paying you any attention. But I was able to go to sleep for a few hours because my body was so tired. I
Heat
was
exhaustion.
going to the
Mhm.
library till 9 o'clock. I was going to the library till 9 o'clock, because you just could not come in there. So they finally had to come in.
Mm,
One of the guys passed out. I said, I'm not really feeling sorry for him.
Mm-mm.
mm,
Let him lay there.
Wow.
I said, of course, heat exhausted.
right.
Heat exhausted.
Wow.
You know what they said? Oh, I opens up my curtains. I open up my blinds. What the hell? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's a little crack like this.
Mhm,
That's not making it almost 100 degrees in here.
exactly.
This does sound a lot like at
That's
Columbia
what
Point.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
And I kept looking, and I'm like, I know all the tenants,
Mhm.
he's not one of them. And it's.
It's Brandon.
You gotta
Brandon.
rush in, take a shower,
Mhm,
Mhm.
10:30.
Yeah.
If you want some warm water,
mm,
well, why do you want hot water anyway? If you're so hot, why can't you just take a cold? I don't like cold.
oh my
This,
God.
this is literally management. Yes, you do live with. Yes.
Mhm,
Pay for hot water.
mhm,
Mhm.
Okay. If you say anything is wrong in your unit, you get dirty looks and
mm,
she doesn't speak to you, I mean.
But when rec comes around.
uh-huh.
Mhm.
The only way that you don't get evil looks is you just suck it up and live with the consequence, you know. But this summer was so hot.
Mhm,
We had people who were scared to complain, were all outside one night and they were all of them was complaining.
oh, wow.
And I found out how many units, didn't have air. And I told some of them, I said, I'm not being mean, but some of you don't deserve it. But for years, I've been trying to do something. And you've been scared to speak up. What can they do to us? They can't do something for every single person.
Well, Mrs. Belinda, I appreciate you coming and sharing, and I'm really sorry to hear that, you know, maybe it feels a little cathartic to them, but, you know, I'm sorry to hear that Columbia Point seems to not be the only tenants in Howard County dealing with conditions. You said you're at Harper's house. Is that in Harper's Choice, do you know?
Yes.
Harper's Choice?
Mm.
Okay, and that's,
Okay.
that's where I'm here. Liz is, and so, not at, yeah, not in Harper's. Harper's Choice.
Oh, you live there.
Yes, but you know, so point is, you know, this, this panel discussion, you know, wasn't called the Columbia Point Tenant Organization. It's the Tenant Organization Panel discussion because, yeah, it's not just about Columbia Point. We're talking about Columbia Point because that's what happens to be the first ones. And, you know, but both of you and Paula, feel free to speak on this, but I would hope that you both understand that, like, your ability to get things done will be limited if you are the only tenant union in the county. And the more tenant unions there are, like at, you know, Harper House or at where I live at Columbia Glade or wherever, where we can get these tenant union or tenant organizations formed, it's gonna make all of our lives easier as tenants, because if we get a law passed in the county, it doesn't just apply to the building that has a tenant union. It applies to all tenants. And so, you know, Mrs. Belinda, I'm glad that you gave us your contact information here. You know, I'm curious, based on what you heard so far, would you like to see a tenant organization formed where you live?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, I want to, you know, follow up with you and get you involved. I think, you know, we're almost done. We're very close to and the goal is finish up here at Columbia Point, get it in the news, and then hope that the snowball starts rolling. And we can get one at Harper House, and we can get one at Autumn Crest where Paulette lives. We can get one in all these different counties, and that's how we're going to build a tenant movement. And so I thank you for coming. Let's keep you involved. I love the energy. I'm sorry about what you're experiencing, but you know, this is how we're going to get it done. It's all working together. And so thank you for being here. And we will absolutely, you know, follow up. I guess one last question I just want to ask, and then, you know, kick it to the audience if anybody else has any other comments or questions. You know, so I was going to ask about, yeah, what is it like to navigate through this process when it's never been done in the county? But Brandon kind of touched on that a little bit of, we're kind of just guessing along and, you know, doing what seems intuitive, and also looking at what other counties have done that do have laws that are a little bit more fleshed out. But, you know, we're not done the process yet, but I'm just curious, like, when you are trying to unionize a workplace, and then if the bosses find out about it, they try to take actions to prevent you from being able to unionize. They might fire you, for example. And so I'm curious, you know, especially, you know, Kevin and Brandon, what if anything, what reactions have you seen? And Paula, you could touch on this too, you know, not just from management and landlords, but like, what reactions have you seen from management and landlords? And then also, what reactions have you seen from your local elected officials, whether it's the county council, the county executive, or the village board? Yeah, if you guys want to speak on their response.
And reactions to
you all trying to form a tenant.
gotcha.
Well, at the first meeting at the other barn, we did have one of the representatives from Calvin Bell show up. She showed up at that meeting, as well as the first tenant committee meeting for the village board. So we did get recognition there. Why don't you go ahead, Kevin?
Sure. You know, management has been reacting as I was expecting them to. Basically, there's a combination of indifference and, you know, kind of a petty like humor towards the idea, because what they're seeing is, you know, they're seeing that we're putting up flyers that are sharing important information, and we're putting up newsletters that are, you know, kind of going into some of the things that they're engaging in that are not too, you know, that are not acceptable for like people's living conditions. But as we've been forming this tenant organization, the personalities involved, if we're going to that level, the personalities involved have just kind of been not too, they haven't been happy about it, but they also haven't entered into that state of adverse action. What they're really concerned about, like primarily as of right now, is the fact that there's so much heat on them because of all the things that are going on, that they're stressed out about their job and they want to not be there or quit and things of that nature.
Yeah,
But-
we've witnessed them tearing down our signs shortly after putting them up. I've had to put our signs up 3 times a day. Kevin himself has gone around and tried to put up signs. He also was going around collecting signatures and was shooed off by management with the threat of police. And they have also I'm not going to say they did, but there was a retaliation against one of the members, their car outside. So there is negative pressure from them. Obviously, they do not want us to come together. They didn't want us to come together to talk, let alone let us come together to organize and come against them. But unfortunately, it's got to that point. We've gotten past the point of maybe if I get through to them, maybe if I'm compassionate, maybe they'll be compassionate. But they have zero empathy. They do not care. They get to go home from work to their house with AC, with working water and hot water. Our water is cut off 3 times a week. Our hot water we get maybe once or twice a week. I've showered at work the past 2 years. So, and I'm tired of it. I pay high rents. I should be able to reap the rewards. None of our amenities are active. Our fitness room is you cannot open the door. Actually, the front of the door to the building, to the main building, you cannot access. Tenants after 5 p.m. they made it so that you cannot get into the building. You have to literally use a side entrance, of which are open 24/7. So their priorities are completely screwed up. Excuse me. They're completely misaligned. So they have a lot to get together. I believe that they're not going to get together unless we kind of make them get together.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna happen for sure.
Okay, describe how long this situation is going on at Columbia Point.
Yeah, so this is the dumpster situation that I was starting to describe earlier. At some point, I'm not sure what happened. I believe some theorize they stopped paying their contractor, or they even decreased the frequency of visits for the trash collectors. But the trash began to pile up very frequently like this. And it would be collected, and then very soon after it would start to look like this. There's 325 people living there. And the fact of the matter is that it's piling up like this because the trash is not was not on an adequate schedule to be collected. People were super upset about this. I mean, this is towards like one of the edges of the community. That's where they try to put the dumpsters. But there is also like there's like a central location where they have a dumpster. They pulled it out of the where the dumpster sits inside the building, where there's a trash chute where the trash is supposed to fall into this dumpster. They pulled that out, and that was just overflowing, and it was right in the middle of the community. It got so bad to the point where like it was kind of blocking an access ramp for handicapped people, and that was completely ridiculous. And we called that out to the fire marshal, and a tenant also said the people from the Environmental Health Bureau, that's underneath the health department, they came out and saw the situation, and they issued a $250 fine to go to the management for each day they did not fix the trash pileup situation. So after that, they got moving on updating how often the trash people came around, but you saw it took until that profit hit was happening for them to do anything, which is, and not only that, but having like attention from the county. No business that's operating this way wants that. So it was a combination of those things. And, you know, kind of to diverge a bit, I do want to speak to the fact that, you know, we're talking about like the individuals involved, and, you know, that level is important because, you know, personalities can affect how property is managed. But the fact of the matter is that what we have at our community, what we have at Harper's House, what we have at many rental communities, you know, around Columbia, is a management company that is disproportionately in control of you know, the property that people are living on. They are operating with a profit motive. They are operating for the sole purpose of collecting rent and making money for shareholders who are invested in this land. So what happens is things like this, trash piling up, is something that they allow to be, you know, to happen, because if they can pay the rent, the trash collector less, that means more money. If they can refuse to fix the AC properly, they can make more money because they're not having to pay for that maintenance. If they don't have to fix infestations of insects and rodents, that increases their profit margins. This is not just people who are you know, dissensitive to us. This is people who are intentionally neglectful, and I refer to the organization itself. The management companies themselves are the problem here. The fact that they are in control of the housing that we live in creates a situation where this kind of crisis becomes inevitable. You know, even at the, you know, nicest, you know, place where, you know, management's responsive, where maintenance comes on time, and, you know, it feels as if, you know, oh, this is a good apartment complex. The fact of the matter is, if you have this dynamic where a landlord has the ability to say, oh, you can or cannot live here. Oh, I'm in control of, you know, your utilities, and I say when they're on or off. That in our society, which is dominated by capitalist forces, makes a crisis inevitable as wealth over time concentrates upwards. That is the primary function of capitalism over time. And so these crises in time come to affect, you know, any complex. So this is something that's always you're at risk of, no matter where you're living. So these collective solutions are extremely important for making a bulwark against the capitalist interests that are owning our properties and focusing on profit instead of people.
And
Well said.
yeah, and on that point that Kevin mentioned, he says even when you have a landlord, you know, like at Autumn Crest where Paulette lives, where things might not seem that bad, there's still that power dynamic, and that's why you should still have a tenant union. And to that point, you know, I looked up, you know, Mrs. Belinda, I looked up Harper House, and it's managed by a nonprofit. In fact, it's managed by a nonprofit created by the founder of Columbia, Jim Rouse, Enterprise Residential Partners. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, it's affordable housing, or oh, it's managed by a nonprofit, therefore we don't have to worry about those same things that we have to worry about from, you know, private landlords. But no, because of the structure that Kevin points out, it doesn't matter whether it's nonprofit, for profit, you know, there's a lot of people.
Some of us pay regular rent. So that is-
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so, yeah, but, you know, point is, it's still, you know, managed by a nonprofit, and by a nonprofit, again, founded by the founder of Columbia, who has, you know, still a good reputation in Columbia. And so people might be surprised to learn that even at a place like, you know, Harper House, they're still having those issues. And so this is why I say everybody, no matter if conditions are terrible or, you know, decent, everybody could benefit from a tenant.
Whether it's nonprofit or not, they don't get the right to disrespect
Yeah.
the people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, one somebody slept in the laundry room. The laundry room is right there in our building, and we could go to do our laundry whenever. And so she gets mad, and they locked the laundry room for a couple of days where we couldn't do any. And then when they open it back up, now the laundry room closes at 9, opens at 9 in the morning, and people are going to work by then, and it closes at 9. People with a job can't get in there to get their laundry done.
Mhm.
Because, by the time you get home, the machine's running, 30 to 40 minutes, and you can get into one, and then you gotta drive, and it's not enough time. It's not enough. And I said, well, we got security on duty.
Mhm.
I said, why can't it stay open to midnight?
Mhm.
Cause I said so to them.
And is Harper House, is it senior living or for people with disabilities?
No, there's
No.
probably, I'm probably closer to the oldest thing up in there. And it's just called evil, disrespect. We got a nice community room, but you can't go in there and have functions because they are from 9 to 5. Well, if I want to have this meeting, I can't have this meeting 9 to 5 because all of you guys got jobs, don't you? I know I do. Okay, so we gotta have it's supposed to be able to have the meeting. We got a nice community room, but she only lets you in there when she's on, and she's never there, by the way. Okay, we had to probably get the upper management to make her open the curtains because she comes in, the door stays locked, you can't come in, you gotta knock on the door to go in to the office. And that's only because we finally got it where she has to let us in, sometimes. But she doesn't let you in the office. The blinds stay closed. How are you gonna know when they're open? So now we get a new note. The office closed every Wednesday. From what? Evil does not even begin to meet up with this woman. And all of the elderly, and especially the Asian tenants, they scared to death because they think that she's going to, they have to get their relative that could speak good English and stuff. She's intimidating the hell out of them.
But to Kevin's point, this woman sounds, she sounds quote unquote evil, but to Kevin's point, she was placed there, she was hired there by a management company, a corporation,
And they keep her
and they're
there.
okay with her doing it. And so that's the real problem.
And I told them that. And I told them I had no problem with meeting them in court any day because it gotta be a judge.
That's why we get the tenant
Gotta
union,
be a judge.
file the
in
class
county.
action lawsuit.
It's gotta be a judge in the county.
There are some.
That's not going to be on their payroll.
Yes.
I said, it appears, I said, whoever seen a complex where there's 30 to 40 persons every time the court open for non-payment of the rent? You ain't got that many people that hasn't paid their rent. Okay, you got a few. Come on, there's some slackers going on here. Everywhere you go, there's some slackers. Okay, some because they can't help it, and this is where life has put them. Some is because they just trifling. Okay, but you don't have good working people, decent people, all lined up every month. And I told her, 40 some years, I have never been late. I have never missed. You have gotten your rent on the last day of the month. And now you have me at court. I said, all hell is breaking loose because if I got to bring in the president, I am not going to stop this fight because you're not going to win. And she, I said, I don't owe you. I paid you. You process my paperwork late.
Mhm.
So what, know what they did?
Hmm.
For the months that my lease should have been renewed, and they didn't renew it for another 4 months past, they charged me for each month what the new rent would have been and gave me a bill. And I said, oh, hell no, I'm not paying. I'm not paying. And we went to war.
Mhm.
We went to court because I was stubborn enough not to give in.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't have to pay, so we know they're not speaking to me now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so it's good that you won that battle, congratulations, but chances are they're doing that to other people and they might not have the courage or the fight that you have, or they're gonna do it to you again. And so that's why we need to get this tenant union, we finished building the tenant union at Columbia
We
Point.
had one lady, they had to pay 2 leases because she was scared to say something and they charged her for a whole extra year.
Oh my God.
Mm.
And she had to get another job because she had to pay 2 leases because she was scared.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Belinda. We definitely want to get you plugged in with what's going on at Columbia Point so you can take what you learned from there and then we can maybe replicate it at Harper's House. Hopefully there's a lot of other encouragement. So, that's all for the questions from me. If we might have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Joel, I see you've got, yeah.
I'm Joe Horowitz, I came late, I'm on the Orchestra Village Board.
Oh, yes,
Wow.
it's perfect timing.
So, going in, anybody else from Harper House? You?
There's other Harper's Choice residents, but point is, you know, the
Not here.
condition, and that's an enterprise complex.
All right.
Oh, yeah, that's their price, all
All
right.
right, and that picture, that's Harper's House?
No,
This is
Columbia
Columbia
Point
Point.
in Oakland.
Yeah, this represents Columbia.
All right,
That's like one of the milder ones.
Oh, yeah.
so the ones in Columbia, you can also go to the Covenant Advisor, the village, to, claim about that. Enterprise keeps coming to the village for support for redeveloping the other projects in our village and around it. And then the council has given them pilot in lieu of taxes. So you're welcome to come next time one of those up to the council with a complaint. So I've had the people from the upper management at Enterprise come, I just surprised Jed Howe and other people haven't, responded better.
But thank you for being here.
Good meeting. But village meeting's tomorrow, because we had a thing last week.
We don't know when they're.
What we should do, Miss Belinda, is, you know, we should maybe, we'll talk outside the meeting, but maybe we could try to create a tenant committee in Harper's Choice too, you know, just like we did in Oakland Mills with the, Oakland Mills Village, where we created a tenant committee, so that, you know, you can start to, you know, really just test how receptive the village board may be, to this stuff.
Enterprise came like this, doing here, and they win.
But we created a tenant committee on the Oakland Mills Village Board. Do you think that's something maybe Harper's Choice Village Board would potentially be open to?
I would say participate, but,
The tenant committee is the way to increase that participation. Maybe if you find a tenant who's, you know, active. Yes. Yes.
Oh, just a suggestion, I don't know if you tried it or not, but, I'm thinking that, you know, of course, no one's gonna show up to meetings, no one's gonna show any interest if they don't know that something is already in place, right?
Yep.
So I, of course, understand that you've tried many times to put up flyers and make information available, these get yanked, thrown out, right? What have you. So, I'm thinking that, with, back to school, right around the corner, you have a lot of parents coming to take their kids to the bus stop. Or picking them up from the local schools. So, I don't know, maybe having, a couple of volunteers at the, you know, bus stations, say, hey, you know what, because again, usually we have a bus pickup for the kids
Mm.
at some of these
Yeah.
apartment complexes.
Nearby
Mhm.
or near.
So maybe someone, and we can talk about that, volunteers to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, that's what we do, and we would love for you to join us. Many of us have been struggling with X, Y, and Z at this, particular, where it might be.
Mhm.
So that, and also, parents who walk their kids to school, take them back to school, so it's worth a shot.
For sure. I appreciate that information.
Yeah.
We also have social media presence. So
Mhm.
we do have a Facebook, we have was it Instagram as well as an X account. I personally also put a video on YouTube if you would like to watch it. It's of the 7th floor leak in the laundry room going all the way down.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing on YouTube, I believe. But we do have a social media presence for those who want to keep updated on future events, meetings, tenant committee meetings, and union events.
Yeah, we actually have the flyer in one of the folders, manila
Yes,
folders
we
down
do.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. It should just say, it's like in
It's the
the,
middle one there.
yeah,
You got it.
in large text, tenant union at Columbia Point, it has the socials
Yeah.
at the bottom. Yeah.
I
Sure.
think is it this graphic?
Yes, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so, if, unless there are any other comments, questions, or concerns, I know there is one last thing Paulette wanted to share. And so one is, Paulette, if you could speak on, what is the reaction been from your fellow village board members? And then also, I understand, one of the tenants, Jim, had his rent escrow case today in court today, if you want to update.
Okay, the village board, they seem to be very supportive of everything. They just want us to change some language in our charter so far, but so far they've been supportive. And Jim went to court today. He said that the judge said things like, you should have already done this, and like, what took you so long to do this, and things like that. But he also said that he had already paid August's rent, so the judge did a continuance for September 16th to come back, and then that's when he should get granted the escrow account. So instead of paying September's rent, he needs to come there with the cashier's check to the court. So if they file against him, the judge said that it's not that you didn't pay your rent, it's that you paid your rent to the court. So starting in September, he'll be able to pay his rent to the court.
So September 16th, new court date.
Yes, September 16th.
Well, thank you for that update and for,
Oh, and on my Oakland Mills Village Board YouTube page, I did upload one video. I'm gonna upload the rest of them though, but I took like the first village board meeting that Columbia Point came to, and I chopped it up. So I have a whole bunch of short videos from it because I think it was over 3.5 hours, and I'm gonna upload them one by one, but I did upload one so far.
thank you. You're talking about the tenant testimonies.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for everything you've been doing, Paulette, giving, again, until the tenant union is legitimized, they're going to do everything they can to delegitimize us. And so having the village board, tenant committees, stamp of approval on the things that we do really does go a long way to making it harder for, Gold Oler to try to invalidate the process. And so, yeah, unless there are any other comments, questions, concerns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other issues in Oakland Mills, any of them, the housing commission, company,
Housing commission properties, like what?
the housing commission owns the road.
No, or maybe they own, I know it's managed by Greystar, which is the largest apartment manager in the country, but I don't know who owns it. The Howard County Housing Commission or something? And yeah, just to be clear, we've mostly in Oakland Mills been active at Columbia Point and Autumn Crest. We only just handed out flyers at the Verona this past weekend. Was how I learned that it was Greystar. And so we haven't quite gotten our feet that wet in Verona or Forest Ridge, but we're definitely, have made a lot of inroads at, Autumn Crest and Columbia Points. That's also who we know more about, like the ownership and whatnot. But yeah, but yeah, unless there are any other comments, questions, concerns, I'm sorry, yeah. Yep.
I'm not a tenant, I'd like to know if there's anything else that could criticize getting the word out about these efforts that we can do as homeowners, solidarity, we're just community members.
Yeah.
I live in Columbia, I live in.
That's one of the more important aspects of this entire movement. And on top of the community like itself, like the people who live there coming together, there also needs to be support from the wider community, whether that's the village or even Columbia at large. It's really important that, when there's a need, if you're able to, making it out, or not even physically, if you can do things online to support as well. Those needs are going to come about as this movement continues building up. But like that's really important because if even when the tenants are together, if they're isolated, there can be issues with how the management company comes after them. So community support provides a sort of extra layer of
Signal chat.
defense. Yeah.
Yeah, learn the signal chat.
Mhm.
So we also have signal chat that's available for the rent stabilization organization, and anybody can join that. If you'd like to be invited to it, it's either Jake or Kevin can invite you, and you can be a part of that. So being a part of that, you can keep up to date with both the union, the committee, the rent stabilization, and also if we need help, if we need volunteers or any kind of participation that we can get.
Yeah, and then one thing I'll say as a tenant, I live in Dorsey Search, not in Oakland Mills or Harper's Choice, but I went after we formed the tenant committee in Oakland Mills. I went to my Dorsey Search village where I just moved there recently. I went to my first village board meeting. And I was the only one there. And I told him what we did in Oakland Mills and said, hey, I'd love to see us do something like that here in Dorsey Search. And I would be more than happy to help lead that or lead that. And the response that I heard from them was basically like they weren't really on board. And I think that there's some weirdness around, well, this is a homeowners association. We're not supposed to represent tenants, even though tenants do have a vote in CA. They are CA members. And so one, that's a misconception. But point is, if and when the time comes at King's Contrivance or something, and we want to form a tenant committee to help push back against that rebuttal, I think it is powerful to have homeowners show up and say, hey, I am a homeowner, and these people, these tenants, maybe it's a homeowner, but they still live here. They're still members in this community, and I want them. Something like that, when the time. Yeah. Yes. So yes, thank you, Ying. Put this together. So this is related to what we've been talking about, and that is tomorrow there is an Oakland Mills Village Board meeting at 7 at the other barn. And that is where they're going to be voting to either adopt our tenant committee charter, or maybe make some edits to it, or maybe, delay it to the next meeting or something. So we're trying to turn people out to encourage them to adopt their tenant committee charter as we wrote it. Also to send a letter to the other village boards encouraging them to also create tenant committees. And so that's at 7 tomorrow, but even before that at 6, they're doing a meet and greet with the new CA president at the same place, the other barn in Oakland Mills. And so it's also a good opportunity. In fact, Miss Belinda, I don't know if you might be available tomorrow at 6, but the president of the Columbia Association is going to be there. And we want to get as many tenants to go as possible and tell your stories about what you're facing at Harper House so that the CA president knows that tenants need more representation. So that's at 6 tomorrow. We can follow up with you about that. Is that 7? Yeah, the Harper Choice Village. So you could leave from the meet and greet to that meeting if you wanted. Yeah. And so the tenant committee that we've been talking about in Oakland Mills, they have their second second meeting on Tuesday, August 20th, also at the other barn, we're gonna be electing a steering committee there. There is that teach-in on Zionism, 101 by Howard County for Free Palestine this Thursday that, Malik mentioned earlier. And then, also related to the Palestine Solidarity, we're testifying at the Board of Education against censorship that's been happening in the school system, unconstitutional censorship that's been happening in the school system against students speaking up, for Palestine. And then the day after our September meeting, which is going to be Monday, September 9th, the day after that, there is a event in Baltimore, a solidarity event that tries to connect different issues. And I think there's not enough of that between different issues, and it leaves us thin, spread too thin. So that's Tuesday, September 10th at Red Endless Bookstore in Baltimore, and we will send the links for all this out. But yeah, thank you. Yes,
Question.
yes.
Going back to the tenant, issues and representation.
Mhm.
I wonder whether within your groups, you may already have some Spanish speakers.
We were speaking about that pretty recently, and unfortunately, we do not have anybody who showed interest
Andy,
in doing that.
Andy.
She has, yes,
they speak well.
they have just come forth, so that is a possibility.
Oh, there's a lot of.
There is.
That's just for Oakland Mills. You have Spanish. We need Spanish speakers in all the communities. So in Harper's Choice, I think it would be super helpful. To have Spanish speakers.
Yeah, and even someone who can come out to present, right,
Mhm.
you guys.
Sure. Interpret, sure.
Also, we did this with our rent stabilization flyers, but we haven't done this. I don't know how many Spanish speakers there are at Columbia Point, but with our rent stabilization flyer, we had a version in English, we had a version in Spanish, and so stuff like that is maybe something you could help us with, like translating flyers. Yeah, so good.
You mentioned that Asian residents holiday from the Chinese. I always speak one other, if I want to help with translating teachers and these, and because reaching out to people in their native language is the most familiar.
Sure.
Does anyone know the Asian resident or the Chinese or Korean, there were tenants in Asian communities that were. Do you know that Asian tenants that you mentioned that were kind of intimidated and not willing to speak up? They're where they're from.
Go for that spot.
But no, well, thank you, everybody. I think, are we okay to adjourn? I'm sorry, it was a long meeting, but I think it's a fruitful. Another hour and a half. Sleepover, who's in? Yeah. But yes, I will motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all. Yes. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Anything else?